So in essence of time, we're a few minutes after 2. Kurt, if I could turn it back over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Jane. And I'm going to stay off video so the audio is better, I hope. And somebody send me a message if the audio gets bad. But welcome. Thank you for being here today. We really appreciate the legislators who have given us this time for us to explain to you. You have before you an audience that's made up of ARC providers from the Capital District up through to the North Country to the Canadian border. We literally represent thousands of people, millions of dollars in services, millions of dollars that really go to our direct support professionals and that go right back into the communities that we are a part of. And we are at a crisis. We are at a tipping point. We keep saying this and we keep saying we need more. Last year we started, the governor made a start with the 5.4% cost of living adjustment. She also made a commitment. She recognized that we had been more than a decade without increases. And she said that she would be providing ongoing support to help make up for that loss. Unfortunately, this year, when inflation was raging, we got an 2.5% increase when the indicator that our increases should be tied to said it should have been 8.5%. So we've been asking for an 8.5% COLA, and we've been asking for a direct support wage enhancement to help our direct support professionals start to catch up to where their counterparts in state service are. So we have a number of people who want to speak. I just want to go through. I thank the legislators who are here, and I want to just acknowledge them. And I have one individual who couldn't be here, but I have a message from him. And so I'm going to I believe Senator Peter Oberacker is going to be with us. I saw Tracy Ellis from Senator Tedisco's office, Assemblywoman Patricia Fahey, Assemblyman Billy Jones, Community Liaison Constance Mandeville, Assemblyman John McDonald, Assemblyman Matthew Simpson and his Chief of Staff, Matt McDonald, Assemblyman Robert Smullen, Assemblywoman Mary Beth Walsh, and her Chief of Staff, Sam Torrey. I think I see Sam on my screen. I'm not sure if maybe the Assemblywoman is not able to join us, and Assemblywoman Carrie Warner. And we did hear from Assemblyman Phil Steck. Phil could not be here, but he did say that he would be sending a letter that the provider associations have asked that be sent to the leadership to support our request for the direct support wage enhancement and the addition to the cost of living adjustment to raise it to a 8.5% COLA. So we appreciate that, Assemblyman Steck. We also have with us Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara. Assemblyman Santa Barbara has been a longtime consistent supporter of our services and of our field. And as the MC, I gave special dispensation. I'm going to let Assemblyman Santa Barbara say a few words because I know he has a number of other commitments. And then we're going to go through. We have a number of people from the agencies who would like to talk. So Assemblyman Santa Barbara.
Let's see. I think I'm unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Kirk, thanks. And I appreciate you accommodating my schedule. I do have some other commitments, and this is the day I do pick up my son from his program, and it's a 2-hour drive, so I have to start heading down there soon. But I appreciate all of you coming together, and I appreciate your advocacy over the years. This budget process, so we're in for another battle to try and get what we need out of this year's state budget. As Kirk said, we made some progress during the last budget cycle. But unfortunately, this budget falls short, or the executive proposal falls short of the 8.5% that we need. And the funding we need to put back into the system to maintain and in so many cases restore services and staffing positions. And I see Jennifer Saunders is here and Kirk Lewis are both here. So both my ARCs are present on this Zoom. I work with them very closely. Attend a lot of their events. I talk to them on a regular basis, in many cases on issues as they come up through whether it's legislation or funding. So you certainly have my support. For me, I come at this as a state legislator, but also My wonderful son, Michael. I've gone through so many of the experiences that the disability community shares, but I've seen firsthand that with the right supports and services, we can make a difference in people's lives. That's what this investment is. It's investing in people. This budget does need to be about people. And I know the governor stressed mental health this year, healthcare services, Medicaid rates, talked about nursing homes. But the bottom line is we cannot leave people with disabilities behind. They can't be put, they got to be put among the top priorities in this year's state budget. So I too have written letters to the governor even before the budget cycle started. I'll continue to do that. Our phone calls are being made. I know we've done things in the district and at the state capitol together, and I'm always very proud to stand with you. I think there's another rally coming up. I just got an invitation of that. I think it's going to be outside, as a matter of fact. We will be there. My office will be there. I'll be there to stand alongside you, to talk, to make sure we stress the point that this is the year we really have to get what we need out of this state budget. We got to get money back into the OPWDD system. I know my son turned 21 this past year. So he's off to a new chapter in his life. Something that I've talked with all of you about is, where's he going next? What programs is he going to be a part of? Where is he going to live? Where is the housing, the housing shortage that we've all talked about? It affects families like ours. It just does. And a lot of uncertainty. I think that there's a number of different issues that we can address. We have the funding in the state budget. We just need to prioritize it. And we need to make sure that this governor understands how important it is, what these positions mean to our community. I know I talk to Kirk all the time about this, about people leaving for more competitive positions, for better paying positions. I've seen it firsthand. Sometimes I go and I see new staff, that people that were with my son, and then I see new people, just as I'm getting used to them and he's getting used to them, and each person is a little different, and the staff that works with them understands the specific needs, and the high turnover rate is really it's just something that doesn't work well in this area, and I think it's important that we keep the wages competitive, and even with the 8.5, I think we're maintaining and perhaps maybe restoring so much of what has been lost, and then through COVID, it was a whole nother layer of challenges that we had to address, and with that, funding challenges as well. So with that, I'm going to end there, and I'm just going to say thank you for coming together. Thank you for your advocacy. I look forward to seeing many of you at the state capitol. Kirk and Jennifer, I look forward to seeing you in the district. You'll always have my support amongst all the issues. There's so many issues that come up every year in the state budget throughout each session, but as you all know, this one is near and dear to my heart. So I thank you personally for everything you do. And my family thanks you, and my son, Michael, thanks you. So God bless, and thank you so much for allowing me to say a few words.
Thank you, Assemblyman. And we thank you for your support. We know you're there with us, and we appreciate it.
Thanks, Kirk.
All right. So we are going to go to our agenda then, and I want to introduce our first speaker.
Kirk.
Hello, Senator.
This is Senator Jim Tedisco. I don't know if your computer shows me or not.
It didn't. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I can see myself on it. And Tracy Ellis is with me, my policy person. Just going to let you know, I'll be on it till about 2:30 because I've got another meeting. And just give you a heads up for that. Okay.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the heads up, and we appreciate you being here. And I know, and I hope everyone else on this call knows what a great supporter of our field you have been. Like Assemblyman Santa Barbara, you had a personal connection to our field, and your brother was served by Schenectady ARC many years ago. So
my brother Joe, yeah, and I'll just say, I had a coach that would always say, talk is wonderful, goals are wonderful, but action is everything, and we don't see much action on this issue. But what I do see is a $227 billion budget, $7 billion more above last year. And I see $600 million for a football stadium out in Western New York for billionaires. I see an enhanced amount of money for Hollywood moguls to get tax credits close to $500 million in New York State. But I also see burnout with the people who need our assistance. I see people leaving who are trained, who want to take care of our clients. I see people, and I want everybody to make as much money as they can, sitting at McDonald's because they have families too, making more than many of the individuals who are taking care of our most vulnerable population. So I don't think we can continue to hear all the talk and all the compassion that people have and no action. We have basically one voice from one political affiliation, from one region of the state who controls the Senate, the Assembly, and the governor's office. And if they're going to talk the talk, they have to start walking the walk. And I've always said this, every budget has to start with those who are most vulnerable. Then we build up to the moguls who need a football stadium or need to spend 2 or 3 days here in New York State and hire people for maybe those 2 or 3 days, then leave and go back to Hollywood for the tune of $500 million, $500 million in tax credits, which the governor wants to enhance right now. So I'll be saying the same things I've said in the past. I'll be meeting at rallies if you want me to. I'll be supporting the support. My brother Joey always could tell us when people who were important in his life, where he had consistency, left him, the aides and those who were assisting him in his education, because he never had a good day when that happened. And we know our young people, our clients, and all those people who are treated are very vulnerable to consistency. And we're not getting that consistency. We're not getting anything close to that right now. So you always have my full support in the past, and you will on this budget also. And it's time to talk a little bit tougher, I think, and I'm ready to do that. So thank you. I'll be listening, and Tracy will stay on this. She's our policy person, but you have my full support. Wherever you want me to be, I'll be, and I'll speak up when you want me to. So thank you all for the service you provide in your leadership.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate your support, and you've been there for us. So. At this point, I want to introduce Jared West, who is the Director of Public Relations for the Advocacy and Resource Center in Plattsburgh in Clinton County. Jared is representing our Clinton County chapter of the ARC New York. Jared's worked for the agency for 8 years. He's speaking today on behalf of Robin Pierce. Robin is the Executive Director for the Advocacy and Resource Center. So Jared, are you on?
I'm here. Thank you, Kurt. And so we're up in Plattsburgh. We're in the North Country, and I'm speaking on behalf of our Executive Director, Robin Pierce. So prior to last year's 5.4% trend, our industry has been decimated by the lack of funding. We only received a 0.2% increase. The Be Fair to Direct Care Act, while beneficial to our DSPs, did nothing to help our other operational needs. We were overjoyed when our industry was mentioned by Governor Hochul in her budget last year, and we ended up with 5.4% COLA. Saying that, we did not receive our money until January 2023, even though it had been approved in April of 2022. So all the messages we were receiving both from the governor and OPWDD was that we can expect to be supported both in regulatory reform and budget to make the industry more stable. However, this year, Governor Hochul did not mention our industry at all. While we can be lumped in with healthcare, we do not believe that should happen. We are unique, as you know. We've been advocating for base increases for wages. We asked for a $4,000 base increase and an 8% increase for our rates. This is consistent with Social Security and to put us in a closer position with OPWDD wages for the exact same job. Our staff deserve it. The funding we requested is paramount to us being fiscally stable. What we have been receiving are one-time bonuses that have actually divided our workforce, because they're not provided for all staff. On top of this, the state has found money to give the state workforce the $4,000 we requested as another raise on top of the raise they got last year. For us, our beginning rate of pay is $16 an hour. The state will now be paying $23 and up to $23 and up. This is over $7 more than we can afford to pay, which is unacceptable. The 2.5% in the governor's budget translate to 16.1640 an hour for us. We're not sure how we can keep up with this with all the retailers and manufacturers in our area that are increasing their rates of pay. We're not sure how to compete. We're not able to raise our rates and close down a shift in IRAs. This only translates to cuts in our services. We need your support now. We need to raise the close the gap between what OPWDD pays and the voluntaries pay. We are asking you to please support a $4,000 base increase with an 8% COLA for our industry. We are on the brink of something bad if this is not something we can do now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Great words. Our next speaker is Hannah Sheehan from Saratoga Bridges. Hannah joined Saratoga Bridges in October of 2020 as a direct support professional at one of their community-based homes. She was promoted to assistant residential manager in November of 22 as their leadership team recognized her extraordinarily selfless dedication, compassion, and commitment. Hannah, are you on?
I am. Good afternoon. My name is Hannah Sheehan. I've worked at Saratoga Bridges for 2 years. I began as a DSP in one of our homes and recently got promoted to an assistant manager position. When taking on a position in this field, we take on more than just one job title. We are our individuals' confidence. We are the ones they see every day coming to work to support them with their individual needs and putting them before anyone else. Since I began, I have always pulled 50+ hour work weeks to support our individuals. Just recently, I had the honor of taking care of one of our gentlemen who was sent home on hospice and sadly passed. Saratoga Bridges saved my life. In the weeks prior to starting in 2020, I was in a rough spot. But since then, the agency has kept my mind straight and given me motivation and inspiration to keep going. I love what I do. Creating tight bonds, making connections, improving lifestyles, and empowering dreams. My goal is to continue advocating for our individuals. Staff are very selfless, hardworking, and determined with so much to give. However, staff are working countless hours, spending holidays away from family, and putting our individuals first. Since getting this promotion 2 months ago, my grandmother recently became ill with cancer and lives in my hometown in Florida. I am unable to see her as staffing shortage is one of the biggest obstacles in this profession. People need to understand that staff are putting their lives on pause to come to a job with a huge smile on their face, regardless of what is going on in their personal lives outside of work. Staff are overworked and underpaid. We are more than just caregivers. We are their family, we are their voice, and we are their advocate. But who is going to advocate for us? Today, I am here to strongly advocate and encourage you to support salary increases for me, as well as my coworkers and future employees. It is hard to find staff who will want to work without decent pay, especially for all that we do. We dedicate and surrender our time, physical and mental health, to take care of our individuals. A collective analysis study conducted 65 times in 2020 showed 22% of healthcare workers experience moderate depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Staff are sacrificing a lot, but how could you not want to support staff who are willing to sacrifice their lives to enrich others? On behalf of me and my staff, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hannah. And you are a great spokesperson for our amazing staff, and I appreciate you taking the time to do that. Our next speaker is from Warren, Washington, Albany, ARC, is Holly Lyons. Holly Lyons offers the unique perspective of being a mother to a young man with autism, as well as working in our field for over 20 years. She's worked as a teaching assistant, administrative assistant, a DSP, a pre-vocational counselor, and she is now a habilitation services provider. Holly, are you on?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Kirk, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming. As a family member, direct support professionals are not only a vital part of my son's life, but they are also an essential part of mine. Today, we are one of the lucky few to have direct support professionals that currently provide consistent and appropriate supports for my son, where he is not only surviving, but also thriving. He is finally fulfilling his social role of artist. And while we are grateful, it took us many years to find him the supports he needed. And again, we are so lucky to have the direct support professionals that provide him with those support. It's been said that it takes a village to raise a child, but that just isn't enough to raise, nurture, and support a child with disabilities into and throughout their adulthood. As a single parent with limited access to supports, I had to rely on my other two children, close in age to my son, to raise him when I was working. What could have been paid supports from adults with training and lived experience was instead my children. What more could be expected from them than to just make sure that they were surviving while I was doing what I could to put food on the table? Not only did my son miss opportunities to learn how to take care of himself and manage his feelings from people who were grown, but my daughters were forced to be grown-ups when they hadn't even finished their own childhoods. Our entire family sacrificed so much to care for my son, and we're still healing and learning who we are as a result. To have had paid supports helping us during our younger moments would have had a profound impact on our well-being, individually and as a family. Fast forward 20 years, and the staffing crisis around the IDD field is the worst it's been since the days of institutionalization. Individuals and their families are struggling now more than ever before, all because we as a society show we value paid caretakers so little, we justify paying them a wage only livable on overtime. Rather than perpetuate a system that marginalizes people with IDD and their paid supports, let's rise above and show we value both the differently abled and the people who are paid to support them. Please support Governor Hochul's promise to rebuild and grow the healthcare workforce by supporting the 8.5 COLA adjustment and a wage enhancement for direct support professionals. The IDD field needs a long-term, significant wage increase to be able to attract and retain direct support professionals who are so vital to individuals with disabilities and their families. Your support can and will make a huge difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Holly. That was incredibly well stated. And our next speaker is from the Arc of Lexington. Wally Hart, who oversees business and community relations for Lexington, has been with them for 12 years, and he's been involved with their efforts to educate the community and their supporters about what it takes to provide supports and services to people with IDD so they can live a life like we all want and like we all try for. Wally, are you available?
I am, Kirk. Thank you very much. Holly's words could not have more meaning or importance to all of us at Lexington or at every other agency that supports men, women, and children with disabilities. The health and safety of each person we support is important to the families of the individuals who are entrusted to us. We can only make sure that that happens by having a staff and a team who are there on a consistent basis, and there are no empty spots. Just yesterday, I sat with my brother-in-law. He happens to own a number of fast food restaurants, and we got talking about staffing and the challenges that he has. And he brushed it off and said, I'll just raise my prices like I've done for the last 3 or 4 years, and I'll cover the cost of what it takes to have staff. At our agencies, we can't do that. We don't raise the prices of the services that we provide. We are totally dependent upon what the state provides in funding for us to be able to maintain the staffing and to maintain the care and services that we provide to individuals. We need your help. To all of our senators and assemblymen, we know that you're supportive, but we cannot do this without you. We need you to help put the funding into the budget. We need the Senate and the Assembly's budgets to be pushed forward to ensure that the governor's budget and combined with the Senate and the Assembly bring the funding that is necessary for our agencies to continue to provide safety, health, and care to the individuals that we support with developmental disabilities. We're depending on you. Thank you, Kirk.
Thank you, Wally. And again, you're absolutely right. And it's the one house budget bills where we're looking for the support of our assembly people and our senators. And this is why we're here. Our next speaker is from Saratoga Bridges. Judy Hayes and her husband, Mark, have a son who lives in California and a daughter, Rosalie, who is supported by Saratoga Bridges. Judy has always been an advocate for people with disabilities. She taught special education and elementary education for 37 years in Saratoga Springs. Since her retirement, she's been a strong supporter of Saratoga Bridges, and she volunteers in many capacities, including serving as a board member and as an active member of the Human Rights Committee. Judy, are you on?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon. My name is Judy Hayes, and I am Rosalie's mom. Rosie, my daughter, lives in a residential house in Saratoga Springs with 5 other housemates. I'm here today to address the need to continue to support our hardworking DSPs who work in homes just like Rosie's. I think we can all agree that the DSP's role in our agency is critical and invaluable. DSPs manage meds, coordinate and schedule appointments, prepare meals, clean homes, conduct fire drills, and help with personal care. It is easy to overlook the fact that in doing all of this every day, they are making personal connections with each individual. In other words, they are Rosie's friends and support system. To emphasize this, I would like to get personal for a moment and tell you a story. It's about commitment, friendship, sensitivity, and it's definitely a love story. The story begins 4 years ago when my daughter Rose moved into Loughberry House. That's when she met Scott. Scott was a lovely man who had developed many lasting friendships with his housemates and staff. Now, over time, Rose's friendship with Scott evolved into something very special. They shared their good times and their bad. They were always together. They exchanged rings and would sometimes talk about getting married someday. Well, with this new dynamic in the house, DSPs were thrust into a new role of family counselor and sometimes therapist, yet without any kind of professional training and corresponding pay. But because of their respect for the couple, Scott and Rose, and the other housemates, they facilitated a positive environment and all was well. So to continue my story, this past November, Scotty became ill and was hospitalized. Now, this was a very difficult time for my daughter and for her housemates. Everyone missed Scotty. I could tell that the staff was worried. They often went to visit him on their own time. Rose was not allowed to see Scott per hospital and family requests. Scott remained in the hospital throughout the holidays. The house manager and the DSPs were asked to put their own feelings and worries aside so as not to alarm Rose and her friends. They tried to make it a typical holiday for everyone, but with a very, very heavy heart. I believe that this showed tremendous courage and strength since they too were worried and loved Scott. In January, Scott returned to Saratoga Bridges under hospice care. Our staff visited him every night to provide comfort to Scott and respite for his family. Back at Loughberry, Rose and her friends were creating posters, collages, and coloring sheets, which the staff hand-delivered and hung in Scotty's hospice room. At this point, the staff were taking individuals to visit Scott and quietly preparing each one for what was the inevitable. Scott passed away in January. Rose, my husband, and I attended the memorial service along with all of her housemates. Many, many past and present DSPs, Saratoga Bridges employees, and friends attended. I knew this would be very difficult for Rose, and I expected to console her throughout the service. However, instead, Rose looked to her Saratoga Bridges family, especially her dear DSP workers, past and present, for support. They implicitly understood Rose's need for compassion at that moment and were there. As a mom, I witnessed a connection and a bond between the staff and Rose and her peers, and it was beautiful and remarkable. And truly, the staff is now my daughter's family. Although the grieving process continues today, I have no doubt that the Loftberry staff will shoulder on and give Rose and her housemates the support they need to move ahead. So this is my story, but I am sure every house, every day program, every workshop, every job site across this state has a story. The love, compassion, and commitment are the hallmarks of this job. These intangible qualities are impossible to measure and quantify, and yet they are the most important thing to our individuals. We know not everyone has the skill or capacity to do this job. Therefore, in order to attract and retain the very best, and don't we all want the very best for our loved ones, we must recognize them for their special talents and compensate them accordingly with a fair living wage. We can do this if you make an actual investment in our staff. Please support the 8.5% COLA and the creation of a DSP wage enhancement. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. And that's an amazing story about what our staff do day in and day out. And we've all seen it, we've all appreciated it, but I think a story like that makes it very real for people who aren't in our field and living with it every day. Our next speaker is Jennifer Saunders, who is the CEO at Liberty, the Arc of Liberty. Jennifer has been the CEO for several years. She is involved with both Liberty's activities in New York State, and she's been involved with some national organizations that advocate for people with developmental disabilities and the organizations that support them. So Jennifer.
Thank you, Kirk, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today. This year, I have an employee at DSP who is celebrating 40 years of service with us. And I know that I'm not unique in having that. I know that every other provider on this Zoom has employees that have remained with them as a DSP for 30, 35, 40 years. Those DSPs are essential to us, and they are getting tired. So they help us train all of our new DSPs who enter the field, who have never worked with a person with disability, who don't know how to prepare food, how to pass medications, how to provide personal hygiene support. Those tenured DSPs are crucial for training new hires. And 1 in 3 of every new hire that they are training will not be here in 3 months. So it is just an ever revolving door that is getting very tiring for our tenured DSPs. They're the DSPs that we leaned on and continue to lean on to work overtime hours when we have shortages. They're looking to us, and we're looking to you to ensure that we have proper funding for them so that they're not having to work a second job in order to pay their bills. They're not asking their families to make sacrifices so that they can continue to work at an agency that they're dedicated to. So as I was thinking about talking to you today, I was trying to think about the things that are different about our needs, because I know this is the season when you're meeting with many different groups and hearing all about the needs of all different types of groups. Similar to Wally, I was thinking about our payer mix and the fact that we don't actually have a payer mix. We're entirely dependent upon New York State funding. But instead of pointing out to you what makes us different, I'm going to point out to you the things that make us similar to who we were a year ago, and then similar to the New York State DSPs that you've already recognized the need to fund. So we have essential services that we are providing. We are caring for some of New York's most vulnerable people. A 2.5% COLA is not even going to cover inflationary cost increases. So if all we have is 2.5% to give to our employees, we are keeping them flat and actually they're losing ground against inflation. You've recognized the need to fund our field, and you did so last year through a 5.4% COLA. We're asking that you reflect on that. Those things that you realized last year that led you to support our funding, please think about those things as you go into your meetings this year. Additionally, please think about all the things that went into deciding that New York State's DSPs could get raises. Our DSPs provide the exact same jobs. We provide supports to 85% of people with disabilities in New York State. They have essential job duties, and we're just asking for the same consideration for our individuals. So again, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. I really appreciate it. And we're hoping that you're going to support us through this process.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is my friend, Mr. William Churchman. Bill has been a member of the Schenectady ARC Board of Directors for several years. He's also the parent of a gentleman who lives in one of our houses. Bill, are you on?
I am. Thank you, Kirk. And thank you all for being here and listening to us today. I've been kind of blown away by the comments that have been made before me. And quite honestly, a lot of the things that I planned on saying have already been said. So I'm going to kind of wing it a little bit. As Kirk mentioned, I have a son. He was born with a genetic disorder called Angelman syndrome. He's nonverbal. He has behavior problems. He probably functions about 2 years old. He needs 24/7. He's, I guess, what we're calling now acute. I go to see him. I bring him home every week. And when he sees he's always at the window watching for me. When he sees me drive up, he's out the door. Coat on or not, he's out the door. Jumps in the car and off we go. When I bring him back, he jumps out of the car, waves over his shoulder. He's back home. That's his home. Now, Saratoga or Schenectady ARC, we have a 70+ year proud history of serving IDD individuals and their families, maybe thousands over the years. And we're struggling. I want to talk a little bit about the agency. We talked about the DSP. We talked about, the folks that we serve. Our agency is struggling. Why? It's because staffing. Why are we struggling with staffing? Well, you've heard it already today and you've read it. If you haven't read Senator Mannion's commentary piece in yesterday's Times Union, you need to read it. It's I thought it was terrific distillation of where we are. But we're having a staffing problem because of money. And it's been pointed out, we can't raise our prices. And we're also locked into the services that we do provide. We don't have options. We can't close early. We can't close on Mondays. We are obligated to provide the services that we said we would provide. What happens when we can't? We've heard about overtime. In our agency, we have administrative staff taking shifts just to fill. We have DSPs moving between houses 2 and 3 times during a shift just to cover for short time when they have to. What happens when we can't do that anymore? We can't pay the bills. 80% of our budget goes to staffing, whether it's direct wages, benefits, whether it's Social Security, workers' comp, the whole thing that goes with it, benefits, health insurance. It's all we got. And I venture to say that the other agencies represented here, the other chapters, are pretty much in the same boat. What happens when we're gone? So you pay now or you pay later. And we haven't mentioned the fact that services have been squeezed, you know, at the residential level. Our residents don't have the same opportunities that they did 10 years ago, because of staffing. We're doing okay, but I don't think I'm overstating it by saying this is a crisis. And the folks that we're relying on, these DSPs, I'll tell you, here's the job description for a residential DSP. It's 4 pages long. The things that have been mentioned before, there's 23 specific items on this job description beyond the position summary. We've got to do something. We've got to do something. And so we're asking you, we're begging you, not only to support us, but to make it happen. Do your best to make it happen. These folks that we serve don't have choices. We do. You do. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. Do your best. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Our next speaker is Jack Mudge. Jack Mudge is the Executive Director for Mountain Lake Services from the ARC of Essex County. Jack started with the agency in the midst of the pandemic. He oversees 650 employees who work for the ARC, the largest employer in the county. Jack has a strong background working with not-for-profits over 40 years, in which 20 of them have been spent in working with organizations providing supports and services to people with disabilities. Prior to his position at Mountain Lake Services, he was the Executive Director for United Cerebral Palsy of New Jersey for 15 years. Jack, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, it's going to be hard to follow all of you, and Bill especially at the tail end of this, and I don't want to regurgitate everything, but there are some key points that we need to consider. 8 months ago, we were an essential workforce. We were being called upon to basically come in when nobody else would. Our staff was cut short with COVID, having COVID, going into homes while they had COVID, whatever it took to get the job done. And I think all of our agencies have done a tremendous job, and our employees have gone way beyond the call of duty. It was said, what do we do? What I see is if we don't continue to receive funding at rates that go with inflation, we will be cut, and we've already started to consolidate, as the state has also consolidated into larger homes and reducing our census through attrition. Our numbers look like 20% over the next 2 years if we don't continue. So 20%, add that to the state workforce at a much higher rate, is going to cause a tremendous problem for the state. Our agencies 40 years ago didn't have to follow nearly as many regulations and rules that we do now in order to keep afloat. Today, if we can't staff homes, we as administrators and board members and team members could be held liable, putting us in that position because of the state budget. We need the funding in order to keep our workforce, but we also have an unhealthy workforce. Over the last 6 months, I've had 3 cardiac issues of staff members in homes. We've looked at the number of hours that they're working, between 70 and 75 hours on average a week. We know that's too many hours, but we can't do anything about it because the wages are too difficult to match. We have put in an excessive amount of training, management skills, and recruiting crazy. We've increased our recruiting budget, which was never in our budget before, by 100%. When we talk about a 2.5% increase in a COLA, we have to think about food budgets. We have to think about oil. We have to think about car and vehicle costs that have all increased by 30%. How do we stay open? We need the help of our legislators. We need the governor to reverse her course. This industry needs to have trust that our leadership is willing to take the action necessary to protect our workforce and the individuals that we serve. I have a letter, and I've seen a number of these letters come across my desk, but this one was yesterday, and I was thinking about what I wanted to say. To whom it may concern, and I am redacting the name, have put much time and thought into this decision to put in my 2 weeks notice. I have no issues with the staff or the residents, as everyone I have worked with has been a pleasure to be around. This decision is based entirely on the status of my mental health, which has slowly been diminished. This is in no way a snap decision, but something that I have been struggling with and has affected my ability to complete and do my job and fulfill my daily duties. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity given to me to meet the work with such wonderful people. We get those all the time, and then we call up and ask why. And it's because they're working so many hours. It's a stressful job. And we're not getting paid enough to take care of our families. We're spending all the time in the homes, and we're not taking care of ourselves. And it's time and time again. And we've put management tools in place, EAPs, supports, but yet mental health, and we agree that it's very important, and physical health is very important. One of those cardiac issues took place in front of one of our participants, and that participant called 911 and another sister group home to get supports in order to save that person's life. This is a system that's breaking quickly. It's very fragile, and we need your support. And so we're asking for that $4,000 base for our essential workforce, and then an 8.5% COLA for our industry. And I see that as a very small cost as compared to what the state is going to have to pay for the state workforce, which is already receiving 30% more than our workforce. Thank you very much. I'll look forward to seeing all of you in the near future.
Thank you, Jack. Our final speaker, our final listed speaker is Maurice McFadden, who is a frontline manager at the Arc of Rensselaer. Maurice, are you on?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, I feel like I'm following so much here. I apologize, especially like you said, the last two, Mr. Churchman and Mr. Mudge. They both said everything that I would have said. One of the things that being on the front line is difficult is I've been with the agency, Worcester County, for about 12 years now. And when I first started, we would get a lot of people coming in who cared about the job, but didn't never worked it before until after, didn't know about the job until after they started working here. But it's harder to get people to start working here so they can care about the job now, because they can go somewhere else and make, as much, if not more, doing something less stressful, as everybody was saying. And I go to managers meetings every month. I have meetings with my bosses, at least twice a month. And I get asked to keep piling on more stuff to my DSPs in the houses just about every month. And I just see it being difficult. And I feel bad to keep asking them to do more and more when, like Mr. Churchman said, there's, 4 pages of their job duties, and we keep asking them to do more, but we're not willing to pay them more, or we can't pay them more, I should say. And there's nothing I can do. I do, reviews, and I have great employees. Like, I'm lucky where I take care of 3 different houses, and I've got employees that's been with me for 5, 6 years, 7 years, but not all houses that the same. But in return, I'm, starting last year, I started losing employees because they're going other places to try to find better opportunities. I had a couple of people move to the state facilities because they can make a little bit more money. And I can't even say anything. Like, they love the people. They care about them. I care about them. As Mr. Mudge said, this job is stressful. I've watched plenty of my folks pass away over the years. And I'm still going because I love what I do, and I love the people I'm working with. And I can't see myself doing anything else. And before this job, I was in retail, and I was in the military, I was in the Marines, and I'm so glad I came to this job. And I want other people to experience what I'm experiencing, but it's hard for me to, convince people to come over here sometimes. And I know it's not all about the money, but sometimes it is when it comes to certain things. And like I said, we keep asking our DSPs to do more and more. And sometimes it's too much for them. And if they're not getting some compensation for what we're asking them to do, they're just going to go somewhere else. And I don't want to be like the last person to sound like I'm down on anybody or anything like that. It's just, I just care. I care a lot, and I care about my people and the stories. I have the similar stories as everybody was talking about, taking care of people. I have a friend who recently had a baby, and she has, her baby has Down syndrome. And I'm thinking, like, in the future, I might end up having to take care of this baby, but I don't know how long I'm going to be around. And I want people who's like me to be around in the future to take care of him when he gets older or he needs the services. And I want people to be able to, afford to live and be in this, this field just so they can take care of him. And I have our family members older, but they don't live in this state, so I didn't want to bring them up. But I do have other family members who are part of agencies in other states. But I just, that's what I got. I'm sorry. I just overwhelmed a little bit. I apologize.
Thank you, Maurice. So you have nothing to apologize for, and we thank you and everyone like you who just does such amazing work in our houses. Before we open it up for some comments or questions, I would be remiss if I did not introduce Eric Geiser, who is on. Eric is the executive director of the ARC New York. The ARC New York is our parent company that oversees, we have providers in every county in the state in New York. We are the largest provider of supports and services for people with developmental disabilities. Eric, I'm glad you could join us. Did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you, Kirk. And I just want to thank everyone for sharing. I have been touched by what I've heard. I hope the legislators on this call have as well. I want to thank you all for being here. And I think you hear how desperately we need your help. And I think the folks on this call know that I don't generally talk around issues. I'm pretty direct. So I'm sure we all saw the governor's budget presentation a week or two ago. She spoke about opportunities for all New Yorkers across the state. She asked us point blank, was her administration meeting the moment? For our field, the answer is a resounding no. You have heard here that we were asking for 8.5%, not to enrich ourselves,
just to keep pace with inflation. We were also asking for a direct care or direct support wage enhancement to increase our salaries for our direct care workforce so that we could try to stabilize the staffing crisis. We spoke to the governor's office. We spoke to Department of Budget, Division of Budget, OPWDD. We got good feedback. We were optimistic. Unfortunately, we were wrong. The 2.5% COLA is 6 percentage points less than inflation. We received absolutely no investment into our workforce. It's beyond disappointing to me. It's poor public policy. It's destabilizing, and it's unacceptable. Adding insult to injury, as you heard, at the very same time, we didn't receive a penny for our workforce. The state workers enriched themselves again with $4,000 raises for upstate workers and $6,000 raises for downstate salaries. They make 50% more than the not-for-profit sector, yet we provide services to 85% of the 130,000 people who receive services across the state. I think I speak for everyone on this call that there should be no preferential treatment when it comes to improving lives, right? That there must be equity in this budget. The two-tiered system is not okay. I would hope it's not acceptable to you. It's certainly not acceptable to us. We have a vacancy rate right now of 20%. We have a turnover rate of 30%. In short, that means we can't staff our programs, and when we do hire staff, we can't keep them. And what this budget does is only make that problem worse. So we ask, we urge, I think we have your support, all of you on this call today, all the legislators, and we thank you for your support. But what I'm asking of you is talk to your colleagues, tell them what we need, tell them how desperate we are, and that we need all of your help in bridging the gap between the governor's proposed budget and hopefully what the legislature can do to bridge that gap. And thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Eric. And I would just echo that thought that as you go into conferences, as you go into meetings, please keep us at the forefront. We need your help. And I'm not going to try to repeat what you've heard because everyone else has been much more eloquent than I am, but we need your help now. We need you to legislate and to act on behalf of the people. So at this point, I do want to open the floor for any of the legislators, or I know we have a number of legislative aides or chiefs of staff who are on the call with us. If you put your a name in the chat, I do have my chat open, or if I see Assemblywoman Carrie Warner has got her hand raised. I was going to say, if you can raise your hand, that's great too. Assemblywoman Warner, please go ahead and unmute yourself and speak up. You'll be next, Assemblyman McDonald.
Thank you all so much for organizing this and for bringing your stories to us. You know, I have to say your stories fill our voices so that when we are in the room discussing what should the priorities be, we have real stories of the real impact to talk about. So thank you very much for doing this. And I know for many of you who spoke about the relationships that you have with residents in the homes or family members who are talking about the experience that your loved ones had, that it's not always easy to talk about these things. So I appreciate that you've done that for us. Please know that I am, as always, very supportive of the work that you do and making sure that your workforce is treated fairly in the state budget. So certainly that's the position I'll take, and again, appreciate you spending time with us today and bringing your stories and your voices to the conversation.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. We so appreciate your support. Assemblyman McDonald.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Let me lower my hand. I don't like it when people put their hand up when they're talking. It's good to see a lot of you. I see some familiar faces, Kathy Gimino, of course, Don Mullen. And I gotta say, Phil Klein, I haven't seen you in a few years, so it's good to see your face, and Kirk and many others. First of all, thank you for this opportunity, and thanks for the continued great work that you do. I work very closely in the disability community in both lives. And I've been very blessed in many aspects, even recently, to firsthand watch what goes on inside the residences. I will share this little story with you because it's worth repeating. Because staffing is so challenging, staff can't even get patients to appointments at times for simple things like the updated COVID vaccine or the flu vaccine. So some of your companion organizations will reach out saying, hey, can somebody come out and do it? And I've got some time on my hands sometimes. So at nighttime, I'll grab the vaccine and go out and do it. And I was over in Rensselaer County on Pinewoods Ave. Not Pinewoods, well, wherever it was. And I pull up to the house and there's 2 state trooper vehicles. I'm like, well, this is going to be interesting. And I go in there, and one of the consumers was not having a good day. Now, this young man was 28 years old, about 6'4", extremely muscular, and was really just not having a good day. Behavior was out of control. The troopers were remarkable in how they dealt with the situation. But what was even more remarkable was the staff. Now, once again, I'm very mindful of the fact that these are maybe $14 to $15 an hour individuals. It's at dinner time. House is in transition. The patients are worried because they see one of their housemates having a bad day, but he was actually causing physical harm and really great potential harm. I was so impressed by how the staff members were able just to keep calm, because I myself was a little jittery. What the hell's going on here? And it was just a remarkable situation. And I was there for a good hour during this whole process. And the staff was able to keep the consumers comfortable. We went about our business with the vaccines. And lo and behold, once that one consumer who was acting out was able to calm down, they were able to convince him to let me go up and give him a couple shots, which I was shocked at. And I share that for this reason. That is human services at its prime, plain and simple. And Carrie knows this, and Pat, I know you're going to hear from her shortly, heard this the other night. We started having the conversation about minimum wage. This is always one of these goalpost conversations. Mind you, the disparity between the not-for-profits and the state-run facilities is a big difference. And I understand the frustration and challenges and quite frankly, the anger that's caused. But then you've got this conversation about minimum wage. And okay, I get it. I understand it. Different times. We want to make some adjustments. But I made it very clear to the speaker and to those listening, and there were a lot of people there, you can't have this conversation and make our human services staffing situation even worse, because that's what's going to happen. It'll be another moving of the goalposts. It'll make the situation more attractive to go flip burgers than it will be to care for patients who have challenges. So the budget's we're in a good spot today. Yes, there's warning clouds 2 or 3 years out. I do think it's an opportunity to advance things. I want to, and I know the Rensselaer County ARC folks have been out in full battle for about 3 months now. The regular, continual, daily number of emails I receive that are from real, genuine people is definitely reminding me daily of what we need to do. And I think that kind of messaging needs to be shared. I know that whether it's the members or their staffs, they're seeing it. They're seeing those messages, and I think you need to keep that going because at the end of the day, you provide a great service. The DSPs provide a great service. As was pointed out, can't remember if it was Jack or somebody else. You do save the state a ton of money, to be honest with you. And we need to make sure that they're compensated properly because we can't afford for the human services workforce to suffer even more. Sorry, I went on too long, but it was a good story because it was real.
Thank you, Assemblyman. I will say that Assemblyman McDonald has told not quite that story, but he's told the story about group homes where the staffing shortages were preventing people from getting to vaccines, and where he made the visit and he made the trip. And he told that story to a group of business people at a Chamber of Commerce function, which to me is some of the best advocacy we can have. It's not just telling us what he's doing, but he's telling the world about the challenges that we face. So I appreciate that, and I thank you for that, Assemblyman. You mentioned Assemblywoman Fahey. I don't see her on my screen or a hand raised, but if, Assemblywoman Fahey, if you are on and would like to speak, please go ahead. Otherwise, I'll look for other hands.
She was there. I know that she and I have been back and forth all day long. I know we have a lot going on, so
yeah, that's fine.
But trust me, if you know Pat, she's there.
She's been a good supporter. I do not have any messages in the chat for me, or I don't see any hands raised. Is there anyone else who wanted to say a few more words?
Actually, Kurt, this is Jane from the Saratoga chapter, and this is our second annual that we have hosted here. And I just want to thank everyone and all the legislators who have taken their time. We try to do this and be as efficient as we can to get as many people to get our message across. And I want to thank all of our participating chapters for tuning in, and many other chapters who are here supporting our endeavor, their endeavor. It's a statewide issue. I did want to mention here in Saratoga, our staff vacancy rate is 40%, and that's for the year. That's just absolutely unheard of. I know Eric said 30. Here in Saratoga, it is extremely challenging, as well in the whole Capital District area. We are all struggling. I've been at the agency for 32 years. I've seen this agency grow from 6 million to almost 30 million. And it's really, really difficult to see us going backwards. We've closed our first home. Our sister chapters that I'm looking at in Zoom have all done the same thing. We're serving about 50% to 60% of the same people in our day programs because we cannot bring them back because we don't have staff. It's beyond a crisis. It was a crisis a year ago. It's a more extreme crisis this year. I'm asking everyone to please support us. We are at a point. The system is broken. We aren't supporting so many people in the community who can't get access to our services because of the staffing issue. I just can't. I'm saying from the bottom of my heart, it is such a crisis. And it's so hard to see us losing ground every single day. The governor really had us at the top, or really talked strongly about the healthcare workers in the last year. Disappointment was just an understatement when we saw the 2.5%. Please, all of you, please advocate on our behalf for the 8.5%. And again, that just keeps us going. That doesn't enhance us really at all. So I just want to thank you all for your support and continuing your advocacy for all of us. Thank you, Kurt.
Jane, there's Kathy Jimeno had raised her hand, and Kathy is currently a board member and is well known to many of us. Kathy, did you want to say a few words?
Thank you, Kurt. I just wanted to pick up on what was just said. This is more than just about how much are we paying our DSPs, and are we overtaxing them all the time, which we know we are, and they're working extra hours, they're missing out on family gatherings, etc. But the lack of DSPs has resulted in us not being able to provide services that our family members, our community members are relying on us to provide. So many more times, the people that we're serving are staying in their homes because we can't get them, because we don't have a driver to get them to day programs. We don't have staff at day programs. We can't get them out to employment opportunities because we don't have staff to do that. The list goes on and on about the number of people that we're no longer providing opportunities to. And one of our board members who's joining us today, Sally, said it puts the question in our minds, why aren't our children, our relatives, our community members worth the investment of the state to ensure that they can live the lives that they are being promised by the governor, that we can all live this wonderful life in New York, but we're not able to do that for our relatives and our community members with IDD because we can't maintain staff. And that's the people who are also being failed in this equation of too few resources. It's the DSPs who can't provide for their own families while they're trying to provide for ours. But it's also our family members who are being left at home, left out of the community, left out of society, even to the point where in some chapters we've heard of houses that have to be combined because of limited staff, and those decisions being made without regard to how do the residents feel, because we don't have the luxury of saying you should be able to live in a smaller group home, where you should be able to live in your own apartment. These are our family members and our community members, and I hope that we can do better for them than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, I thank everyone. This is, it's an hour plus on a Friday afternoon, but we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us, to hear. We will send you a summary of our talking points. We ask you to support the letters to the leadership. We ask that you support us in your conferences and that you keep us at the top of your minds as you go through this challenging process. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Saratoga Bridges, Pam and Jane, for setting this up. And thank you, everyone, for being here and listening. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Kurt, for hosting.